This photograph is called the Ganet of Borray, St Kilda, Scotland. Ancient sea cliffs rising straight out of the sea on an uninhabited island, which is an absolute paradise for seabirds. Flying out to look at this curious scene down below of three guys on a little boat bobbing in the sea, one of them who's hooping and hollering because it's just such an incredible scene. Hi, I'm Jim Richardson, and for 35 years I worked for National Geographic magazine doing stories all over the world. This story on the Hebrides, that string of islands off the northwest coast, came about because we were doing a whole series of stories of landscape photography. I had spent a great deal of time in Scotland already and reasoned that the Hebrides would make a good subject. Probably about 70% of the stories that I did for National Geographic were subjects where I wrote a proposal to them. Those proposals would go into a big pile, and about once a month the committee would get together and they would go through and decide which ones they wanted to give the green light to. Once that happened, a team would be assembled. And from there, everybody would set out to do their work. So when you're doing the research for something like that, I'm looking for page-turner images, but also that will tell the overall story. I wrote a proposal to do just that, and they accepted it. And once I had sort of subjects in mind, then I'd be trying to figure out how to do unique pictures, often of places that had been photographed a lot. My job in that case is to try and elevate that picture, somehow make it stand out from the myriad pictures that have already been done of that place. Because you always know, as a photographer for National Geographic, that you're going to be facing up to a picture editor and a room full of editors who've seen all this stuff before, and they aren't easily impressed. Luckily, I got about 6 weeks to go out and tour around in the Hebrides Islands off the coast of Scotland, looking for great landscapes. Often you would think of as a full assignment as being about 40,000 pictures. I think I only did about 20,000 on this story. This picture comes from St Kilda, a small group of islands 40 miles west of the outer Hebrides, way out in the Atlantic. It was occupied until 1930, when the last dwindling remnants of the population called upon the British government to evacuate them. They couldn't go on. They sent out 2 ships, and one day they packed up everything and took them away, and that was the end of about 2 millennia of occupation of St Kilda. I had also noticed that there were never any pictures of St Kilda in the sunrise or in the sunset. Everybody who goes there goes out on a day boat. They leave from Harris. It takes about 4 hours to get out there, so you have about 5 hours on the island. So nobody was ever there at sunrise or sunset. So I hired a boat, rather expensive to do that, Seamus Morrison, to take me out there so we could stay overnight, and with the hope that I'd have good light. And so it's kind of a gamble because you're spending a lot of money to get there and you don't know what's going to get. And in fact, when we got there, the island that I really wanted to photograph, Borray, part of the St Kilda group, was all socked in. It often gets these clouds around the top of it. Hugely disappointing. I felt defeated. I wasn't going to get anything. But we did a circle around the island. As we came around the north end, the clouds off to the west gave me a break, and sunlight started pouring through, and we had this sunlight falling on the cliffs. And as we were out there in our little boat bobbing away, the gannets started streaming out. So tens and thousands of gannets. It was just an incredible scene. And I was on the back of this bobbing boat in the rough seas there, and the crewman was holding onto my back of my belt so I wouldn't go over the rail. And I just remember turning around and yelling to the captain. I turned around, "Seamus, you earned your money today." I'm thinking, oh, this is an incredible scene, don't screw it up. Like get it in focus and get the exposure right and try every variation, and I was shooting wide shots and tight shots and everything. In those 10 minutes, I shot, 500 frames? So there's never a moment when you're thinking, oh, that's the picture. I mean, people want to tell photographic stories. Every time they tell the story, they say, oh, I pressed the shutter and I knew I'd gotten it, and I think that's ridiculous. If they tell you that they pressed the shutter and they got the picture, I can almost guarantee you they left something laying on the table. They probably didn't work it hard enough. And it was just absolutely incredible. You don't get those things all the time, but it was. You basically have this big, almost triangular shape, there. It kind of suggests that the cliffs are running off down to the distance down there. Whenever you place something in the frame, you create spaces where the something isn't. You have this shape, and then you have this shape, but you also have something else going on here. You have birds that are off on the edge. They're being cut off. When you do that, you suggest that there's more out there than you can see. That's a psychological, compositional thing. I did get a very warm light in that last bit of it. See this darker area over here? That being bluer makes this warmth warmer. You never perceive colors or shapes independently. You perceive them in relationship to other things within the frame. And then those blessed birds kind of flying out in this triangular shape, echoing the shape of the cliffs were very convenient. The gannets have this look down kind of head. If you've ever seen the French supersonic transport, they say they modeled that after a ganet. And they always have this look when they're flying over you of just kind of looking down at you, curious like. Any other birds besides gannets probably would not have had as much effect in this photograph as they did. And then finally, I would just point out that you see little lines here. Those are more birds in their nests all up and down the cliff. So it's a kind of picture that warrants detailed observation, because as you do, you start to see more, and you see more about the place and all that. And you can kind of understand why this would be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So in the business of editing photos, particularly if you're talking about, say, documentaries, that really puts a crimp on your style if you want to be taking out telephone poles and wires. You can't do that. You can leave them out of the picture, but you can't take them out afterwards. I need people to look at my photographs and be able to believe that what they're seeing really was there. Say for National Geographic, you would be doing control of lightness and darkness and contrast, maybe some local tonality like darkening down a sky so that it looked more like your eye saw it than the way that the camera saw it. So you really were tethered to reality. It's often frustrating because the scene could be really dull if it was just gray sky, and you don't have any control over that. Your only control I have over it is go back again and hope you get a better day. When it comes to selecting the right photo, you're talking about a lot of editing time. Yeah, if you have 40,000 photos to go through, it's a week at least to sort of get through those. By the time you get to 400 pictures, they all ought to be pretty good. We would usually show 80 pictures to the editor. So if a picture really reached out, and grabbed you, you want to pay attention to saying, why? Why is this one grabbing me? Then we'd go off to the layout person, and in about 10 minutes, we would cull that down to about 40 pictures. A lot of really, really, really good pictures got cut at that moment. And then you go and start doing layouts to bring it down to the 15, 18, maybe 20 that you would do if you were, say, doing a 24, 26 page story. So I think out of the Hebrides story, we ran 12 or 14 pictures. Each picture was doing a lot of work. They need to do something specific, and they need to do it well. Photographing the Hebrides, I think I probably did a better job there than I but it also was learning that I could tell a strong narrative story straight through landscapes and geology and weather and light, and it didn't necessarily have to include people and other supporting actors. That these things alone could tell a dramatic story.